Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to a finally Friday. It is about 12:06 p.m. here, California time, July 5th, 2024. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows 4.8 down into the Chile area, it looks like. There in the red flag. Also 1.9 Hawaii. See what we got going on down here. Okay, looks like it's underneath the Argentina area, fairly deep here into the Peru-Chile Trench. Argentina side here of the border. 200 kilometers deep for that 4.8, just coming in to the Earthquake 3D maps here. I want to start off up here into the Pacific Northwest off the coast here of the Vancouver Island ranges, where we did see some further activity this morning with a 5.0 coming into this area. Now, we've been watching a pretty decent amount of swarming going on here over the last couple days. Let me bring up the last 7 days of movement. And does look like there was a little pause between yesterday's activity and today's events. But so far, about 9:30 in the morning local time here, California, we had that 5-pointer stirring up. Subsequently, we got some activity stirring up inland here across the Mount Rainier region. Got a little bit of elevated earthquake activity here, and then also around Mount St. Helens. We'll get to that here in a second, but also even further out and about here. Into the Montana area, we've seen a 3.9 early this morning out here around the Seeley Lake area. Good sign here, regional strain up against the plate boundary. Of course, may seem like a long ways away from the activity out here to inland, right? That's even a long drive. If we had to, we'd have to take a boat for a little bit, but regionally speaking, as a whole, with the plate dynamics out here and how everything works, it's not surprising to see inland earthquake activity out here following all this subsequent movement offshore in the Vancouver Island range. This area is on a divergent boundary, meaning separation of the seafloor. We've seen increasing activity in the tremor department right about here yesterday. Let me show you guys real quick the tremor map here from yesterday. Which is expected, right? Following any type of more further pressure here on the Cascadia, we should see tremor. And sure enough, that was the area that got hit yesterday following this elevated movement here. And it just makes sense. This area is adding strain here against the northern edge of the Cascadia, increasing tremor downstream, meaning that there's increasing pressure out here against this area, the locked region of the Cascadia subduction zone as well. So kind of watching that. Little interesting activity nonetheless. I don't think we're done here yet. I mean, we've come up on how many earthquakes? Let's see. We've got about 15 earthquakes in total tally. The largest one of 5.7. We can get some sixes, upper sixes out here across this area. And, of course, not to mention, the much bigger potential with a 9-pointer, the Cascadia subduction zone with a full rupture here. So let's see what we got. Where's that one map I was going to show you guys? We'll get to the hurricane here in a little bit. That looks like it could reform as a strong hurricane before it hits the Texas coast. So here's a little overview of the Juan de Fuca plate, the Explorer plate up here. We're seeing this activity take place, right about here, I would say, around the spreading seafloor center. And these arrows here indicative there of the subduction zone, where the subduction zone begins. And then, of course, it extends underneath the North American plate. There's fracture zones out here as well that may not necessarily be spreading seafloor centers, more or less like a strike slip type of fault boundary. Trying to see if I can find a little bit simpler overview here. A lot of these are... Let me see. I think there's another map down here. This is actually a really interesting article here for the folks up in Canada. I'll leave this link here for you guys to read around the Vancouver area up there. Very interesting article about the Cascadia and the potential effects for that region. Let me see. I know there was another strike slip. We got a couple of those out there on the Explorer plate as well. Spreading seafloor center right here. You'll see two arrows going apart from each other. This is a simple layout of the Cascadia subduction zone. I know there's more, but this basically shows how a plate will subduct underneath another plate. And in this case, it's the North American plate. And of course, you get these volcanoes stirring up as well, right? Following the subduction there of the oceanic crust. Spreading seafloor center there in numerous areas. These other ones are strike slip fractures. But the activity that we're seeing on right now with that movement up there in Canada, or off the coast there of the Vancouver Island ranges there, is on a divergent zone. Notice these ridges out here, meaning that this is a spreading seafloor center. And there's, like I said, there's quite a bit. And some unusual ones out here as well, away from the main region. So that tells me right there that it's more of a broader scale event than just localized. So just keep an eye on the region there. Inland activity, we're seeing somewhat elevated movement as well. Mount Rainier, this is kind of interesting here. I'm looking at about 11 earthquakes stirring up here. Most of it around 3 to 6 o'clock in the morning local time. Nothing big, but it's got some very shallow earthquake activity here on the southwestern flank there of Mount Rainier. And it's been a little while since we've seen anything stirring up out there in that area. Let me see what we got for the Mount Rainier area. There's that earthquake activity a little bit stirring up there on the summit and the southwestern flank. Seismograph stations here should show some of that earthquake activity if they are proper. Well, of course. Why wouldn't it be found? Or why would it be found? We wouldn't want that, right? Or maybe they wouldn't want it. Who knows? I believe this one works, though, hopefully. Camp Muir. Hello, there we go. S-waves. That was a couple hours ago, about 3 hours ago. I wonder if that's that quake in Montana that showed up there. No, that was way this morning. So I'm guessing that it's going to be this 5-pointer that showed up on the Mount Rainier station. Yes, those P waves and surface waves can show up hundreds of miles away here. Mount Rainier. Earthquake activity is very small, and it looks like it's just barely picking up some of this activity here on the seismograph. But it is. Doesn't look like any major swarm, just a little bit of uptick in movement here across the area. And that could have something to do. Obviously, it does long term, right? As far as the subduction of the plate. It's how you get these volcanoes out here. And we've seen a lot of tremor here recently, and a lot of strain in general. So we might have to keep an eye on some of these volcanoes. Mount St. Helens has been seeing a little bit of earthquake activity here in the past year or so. Somewhat elevated swarming going on. Right now, there is not a whole lot there on the map. Let me double check the Mount St. Helens seismograph station, see what we got. There's all the earthquake activity over the last couple weeks there. And this has been going on for a month or two. Then we had a decent swarm last year. USGS put out little notifications stating that this is probably more than likely recharging of the magma system below, about 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers deep here underneath this area. So recharging, right? Wow. So sometimes it pays to go and check the raw data, right? Because we're seeing a little bit more activity here on the Mount St. Helens station than what they're showing on the USGS map. They're only showing one earthquake here, but these are earthquakes. Maybe not this. Maybe not these here. It's hard to say what those are, but these are well-defined earthquake spikes. There's a lot more than one. There's the 5-pointer that struck off the Vancouver Island Ranges coast here, picking up the surface wave. That's actually a really decent signature there. And a handful of other smaller quakes there following that event locally here at Mount St. Helens. So yeah, definitely a little bit of earthquake activity, and a little bit more than one earthquake, right? I would say probably about 10 or 15 of them in there. And then we got all this activity stirring up well inland here, over around the Rocky Mountain ranges, northern edge here, with a 3.9 in Montana. It's been a little while since we've seen a 3-pointer. Looks like a few folks were up early in the morning and did feel it around the area, even down in the Helena region. This area has seen some earthquake activity here historically, though. Look at this. There's a 3.9 this morning's update, or this morning's earthquake, I should say. It's Friday, not Monday. As you can see, this goes back, pulled up 2.5 and above over the last 24 years. So we do get some earthquakes out here on occasion. But this 3.9 up there, along with a couple other 4s that we've seen here back in 2017, 2016. But these were a ways away. But either way, there's some fault systems out here in the mountain ranges that do see some earthquakes. 2003 seen a 3.4, and a couple other earthquakes out here historically. As you can see, definitely quite active out there if you look at the long-term models. But for now, a handful of earthquakes out against an unnamed fault system out here. I'm sure there's a couple different faults, but I can't seem to find the exact fault system that this earthquake is occurring on. Down south here in Yellowstone, nothing going on there, but I guarantee you that 3.9 showed up there. There it is, pretty nicely. Showed up all across the park, in fact. Holmes Hill, Maple Creek, there's that 3.9 from up in Montana, but that's such a local station here that's going to show up pretty nicely as a very well-defined earthquake signature. Local quakes here are going to look like something like this, very spiky and localized. This is going to be the 5-pointer offshore. Again, out off the Vancouver Island Ranges coastline there. So localized earthquake activity, a handful of spiky little quakes there, nothing big. That movement that you see is not at Yellowstone, but positioned up into Montana. To the north up here, a couple 100 miles away. Let's see here, 3.9 at 0346. Right, if you look at the timestamps right here, 0346. It's going to be right here, but due to the mountain, this is my time, local time. So mountain time is going to be 1 hour ahead, and that's why it's at 446 here. But pretty neat to see. I mean, that's a little ways away, but a 3.9 can show up pretty nicely out there. Not for sure the exact distance here from there, over 150 miles away. 50, that almost seems like too large of a signature for a 3.9. I wonder if that earthquake was bigger. Yeah, to me that looks like a bigger quake than a 3.9. Let me see what we have out here. It has been reviewed. Let's see what we got for magnitudes here. Well, one station reporting it as a 4.3, but they chose they went with the 3.9. Let me see what we got here. Wow, some of these reporting it even as a 5-pointer. That's why I'm saying this looks a lot bigger than a 3.9 for being 100 and something miles away. Showed up, fairly strong on those seismographs. Here's the magnitudes of various stations. And you can see 5-pointer is coming up on quite a few of these upper 4s. Some more 5s. But for some reason, they went with these station details up here where they're lower. And there's only a handful more stations here. Let's see here. Yeah, only 3s, upper 3s. Isn't that a little odd? A lot of these other stations here showing 5s and upper 4s. But hey, let's choose the low one. Doesn't stand out as much, right? If you happen to be up in this area, and I got a couple viewers up here, I'm sure, let me know if you were up that early in the morning and if you felt it. I mean, that's 4:46 in the morning there, local time to Montana. And as you can see, it was felt fairly broadly out here for a 3.9 this early in the morning. Either it woke people up or there was already a lot of people up at that time in the morning. I think it was a little bit bigger than a 3.9. Looking at that seismograph there on Yellowstone, took me a second, but it's like, no way, that's over 100 and something miles away, right? Am I reading the The legend here writes 100 miles from right here about Yellowstone. That could be almost close to 200. Anyway, that's a little odd. All right, we'll keep an eye on it. And check out some of these waveforms real quick. Sometimes this can take a while. Distance. Hard to tell on this. I don't want to spend too much time studying this stuff. Black Hills, South Dakota, showed up pretty nicely up there as well. So I don't know. I'm leaning more towards it being a little bit larger than a 3.9. But hey, I'm not in charge of that. I just look and observe and report. And to me, it looks a little bit bigger than a 3.9. All right, let's move on past that. Kind of skip California over here. Let's see what we got going on. Northern California, awfully quiet. Again, watch for some further activity up here with this movement going on. Increasing pressure, increasing tremor here across the northern edge of the Cascadia, northern end of the Cascadia subduction zone, following all this movement here over the last couple days. So an obvious sign that we could be seeing some further earthquake activity up there. Along the San Andreas Fault here, the creeping segment, got one earthquake at 1.6 near the pinnacles coming in on the San Andreas Fault. And there's been a handful of earthquakes here over the last couple days, getting close to probably seeing another, what is it, another 6-pointer down here. I think it's every, I can't remember the exact year. Is it 25 years or no? I don't think it's that long. But we're getting close probably to seeing another earthquake down here around the Parkfield area, which is a little bit further south, but along this section here. Normally sees earthquakes here on regular intervals, and I think we're getting close to seeing another one as far as that time frame goes. I'll have to check back on that. Southern California, along the San Andreas Fault here, the southern branch. Handful of earthquakes here. I don't think we've got anything major going on. A couple swarms out there, a little bit of earthquake activity, but no big swarms, just some very small microquake swarms here in the typical locations. As far as the 2.5 map and above, well, that pretty much removes all the earthquakes out there. So generally light, small microquake activity today. New Madrid seismic system, the East Coast, pretty quiet. I tend to skip over these earthquakes because they're almost always happening out there in the oil fields. There's nothing new, nothing of unusual activity. The Big Island of Hawaii got a couple earthquakes out there in the last 24 hours or so, a couple in the last hour as well. Still watching this one because we're at an inflated level. Let's bring up the USGS map here, see what we got, make sure bells are off, everything looks good. Go back here to the USGS map. See what the inflation chart looks like here today. So there's their little adjustment, and I've been talking about that a lot. I don't know why it looks like this now. I guess it's to monitor the data better, but to me it looks like it removes all the smaller adjustments, as far as inflation and deflation and any type of inflation or deflation event going on. It looks like it monitored it better before they made this adjustment. Now it just looks neutralized. So hard to say. Either way, we are going up. Should still be going up, but I don't think we've leveled out like that. Maybe they're making it look smoother, but I don't like it. I like to be able to see when these periods of ups and downs are occurring. But right now, there's not a whole lot of elevated earthquake activity. Just a little bit around the summit region. Very small earthquake activity. The current update here from the USGS on Kilauea Volcano shows that it's not erupting. Earthquakes around the Upper East Rift Zone remain above background levels following the seismic swarm that took place from June 27th to July 1st. Now, they did put out a little notice here on that. Let's see. This was put out on the 3rd. Prior eruption in the summit region have occurred with very little warning. You know, and it's just... Let's see here. So, evidence of long history of magma moving along this rift zone, the Upper East Rift Zone right here. Intrusions of new magma into this region have been monitored numerous times in the past decades with sparse eruptions. During the past 60 years, there have been approximately 50 intrusions and 5 eruptions in the Upper East Rift Zone. The last Upper East Rift Zone eruption took place back in 1979. That was a brief one-day eruption that occurred in and near the crater and was preceded by 2 months of increased earthquake activity along with inflation at the summit region. So there was other Upper East Rift Zone eruptions as well in the early 70s, and that's kind of where I'm believing that we may see this next eruption take place here around the Upper East Rift Zone, where we've seen most of the earthquake activity here recently, and it's visible. The last eruption here back last month here lasted for 10 hours out here on the Southwest Rift Zone, right about here. That has sealed up and solidified, and I believe we're going to see it out here now, specifically in this region right here. But right now, we're at a temporary pause. Still a high level of inflation, but we're at a standstill. Deadlock, so to speak. We're just waiting to see what's going to happen here. Really no major increase in activity right now. South America, looks like we've got a couple more earthquakes in here. Underneath the Argentina area, getting some surface adjustment down south here. So increasing pressure and strain out here as a whole against the subduction zone. Let's see what we got for New Zealand. Still seeing some threes, it looks like. 3.9 earthquake. Let me go check out GeoNet servers here real quick, see what we have. 3.9 looks like the GeoNet reporting it as a 4.0. (2,128 reports of this earthquake. I mean, most people will probably feel that earthquake around the Wellington area, it looks like. But it's out there in between North and South Island area. Showed up pretty nicely there on the seismograph stations about 6 hours ago. Since then, and prior to that, though, looks fairly quiet. Just that little quake here today. Some deeper activity returning to the Tonga Trench, 4.4 here, fairly deep, almost 600 kilometers for that quake. Fairly quiet around the Papua New Guinea area today. Solomon Islands as well. Some typical clustering going on around the Philippines southward. No major activity. Japan did see a fairly deep 5-pointer up here. It's going to be this earthquake right here. 235 kilometers earlier, just over an hour or so ago, into the, it looks like it's going to be the southern end here of the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, right in this area. It's pretty deep. This is another major subduction zone area we're watching. Got some big time potential out here for a mega quake. It's been a little while since we've seen any major adjustment here across that plate boundary. Let's see, that 1-pointer in California. Atlantic Ocean, got some activity stirring up here in Iceland, so let's go see what's up. Let me pull up the latest Iceland earthquake map. Ooh, nice. Kicking up here in the rift zones out offshore. Pretty decent amount of swarming going on out here. Potentially could increase and elevate conditions out here across the Savart-Singi area, the Reykjanes region as well. Grindavik down here. Doesn't look like anything localized, but along with these rift zones showing some further activity, could see it increase up here soon. That's a ways south. Let's go check out the most recent update. Which was put out today. Likelihood of another magma flow or eruption in the coming weeks and months. This is from the Icelandic Met Office here. Seismic activity at Svartsengi has been very low since the eruption ended on June 22nd. That's seismic activity, but inflation in the region continues. Magma reservoir, increasing pressure out here. Let me run over here to a couple of these runs and see 8-hour run times. This gives us a good indicator of how quick the land is rising out here. Let me pull this up. Where's Grindavik? Right about here. Here's the upward displacement, vertical displacement, meaning ground swelling or land rise. There's the eruption that took place here recently, back in late May, early June. Of course, it has ended since then, but we did lose quite a bit of volume of magma. Now we're going back up here. Not quite to the level we've seen prior to the last eruption, but we're getting close. Looks like we may be seeing this continue once again here. This could be a non-stop, long-duration event for months, if not years to come. Creating some new land out there in Iceland, or raising some land. Adding to the land, I should say, increasing elevation. All right, let's see what else we got here. Real quick, space weather activity, and then we'll get on to weather with that hurricane. Did see a little upper sea flare here in the last hour, it looks like. That is coming off of a far side sunspot way out on the western limb here. Out of sight, out of mind, but it did produce a little bit of sea flare activity, as you can see there in that bright feature on the UV ray here. We do have a couple different sunspots that are coming around the eastern limb. I don't think... Let me see here. This is a day or so behind. Let me bring up the most recent, if we have it. These sunspots here are a little bit closer than what this older image is showing, so they're more positioned probably more right here. That's a huge area. Last time it was around the sun, it was 3 different sunspots. It does look like, see, these were the 3, but it does look like this area here has formed into like maybe one giant complex sunspot. We'll have to watch it as it comes around the eastern limb, but I think space weather activity, even though it's we got a little low on the activity right now, it's going to kick back up once these sunspots come around the eastern limb. Looks like this is a newer one. I don't think that's the active region. I don't think it's traveled that quickly. This may just be a region ahead of the main area that we'll get a better look at probably tomorrow. Right now, there's not a whole lot of complexity going on. This sunspot up here looks like it's trying to do something, but it doesn't have that major potential for any strong flares. But we'll keep an eye on this area and further regions out on the eastern limb as they come around into the more Earth-directed view. Right now, 99% chance for a C flare, M flare at 35, X flare around 5% chance or so. Really no major auroras in the forecast here, folks. Pretty green across the board means, well, not green in the sky, but a whole lot of nothing going on as far as the auroras go for now. All right, hurricanes, look at this. Well, this is the forecasted ECMWF model here for the Texas coastline. Shows a major hurricane hitting this area around the Corpus Christi region in a few days. Let's check out the latest information on this hurricane, though. See what we got. Latest information here shows that it's over the Yucatan Peninsula here of Mexico. It is weakened down to a tropical storm, 70 mile per hour sustained winds, moving west-northwest at about 15 miles per hour. That's only going to be a little speed bump. Once it gets here into the warm Gulf waters, it will have time to re-strengthen into a hurricane status. This is trending more and more as if it's going to be a little bit stronger hurricane than what was originally forecasted here for landfall. Now, the cone of uncertainty is quite broad out here. But it does look like potentially going to be a landfall here around the Corpus Christi area around 7 a.m. Monday morning, it looks like there, local time. No warnings or watches in effect for now. I think what people are doing are waiting to see what happens after this little speed bump that it's going over. Let's check out the latest infrared image here of hurricane or tropical storm Beryl. And yeah, a little bit of disorganization going on there. That's what happens when most of these tropical cyclones go over the land. You know, it loses its strength, but there's not a whole lot of wind shear, anything that would shred this apart. So once it does get back over here across the warmer open water, it will continue to feed and rapidly gain strength once again. But yeah, no doubt that's creating a little bit of havoc down there across the Mexico area. But we're going to watch it, see what happens here, because most of these weather models here have shifted, right? Shifted with a more northward turn with a direct impact there around Texas, and then weakening up further as it gets caught up in the weather patterns northward. But most of the models are in agreement here that we could see an increasing activity. Right now, tropical storm, it could go up here into Category 1. Some of the models are trending up that way. Really nothing in the Category 2 strength around Texas landfall time frame, but we'll continue to watch it. Either way, these weather models have been trending a little bit more stronger and northward with each run. The windy map over here, let's pull this up, see what we got. We're running the ECMWF model. This is the current position here of Tropical Storm Beryl. As we put this into motion here in a couple days, it gets over that warmer water, and right there it looked like it was starting to re-intensify. Hard to say, right? You never know what's going to happen, but it does look like it's going to gain some strength and potentially come awfully close here to the Corpus Christi area, if not a direct impact from that hurricane. That's the ECMWF model. The GFS model here, let's go back a little bit. That shows maybe a little bit more northward. Not really, but weaker. Somewhat weaker than what the ECMWF model is pointing out in terms of hurricane strength. But all the models trending that this will become a hurricane once again. Right now, those 70-mile-per-hour sustained winds here across the Yucatan, Mexico area. Got a massive low-pressure system out here in the Pacific. I wish that was over us right now here in California, but it's not. We got some heat. Well, that's good for next week, it looks like Monday. But right now, yeah, we're supposed to be up there, folks. How's this for a forecast? Does this sound inviting or what? Come on out, guys, to Northern California. It's beautiful out here. 116 degrees. That's at 1 p.m. 3 p.m. Yeah, roughly about the same. 116, 118 up in Anderson. Sacramento, 111. A little bit of a delta breeze trying to come in here today, but today and tomorrow is going to be the peak. I think tomorrow's got a couple more degrees on today. So let me see what we got. Oh, yeah, a little bit. How's 118 sound? 120 up in Redding. But notice this delta breeze getting a little bit, it's trying to come in. But I don't think it's going to have any effect until later in the evening there tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow night. But, yeah, it's a scorcher out there. Already at, it's 12:40 right now. And I have 100 degrees air temperature in my backyard at 12:40. So we got a couple hours of further afternoon heating. And, again, we're supposed to be around 113, 114 or so. But tomorrow will be the hotter day. Hopefully we can survive it. I'm hopeful. But it doesn't stop. It continues into next week. That's the bad thing. You know, these are all air temperatures out here. Not the feels like. These are all hot air temperatures. It just doesn't end. A massive amount of heat this year. Cooking us, no doubt. Let me check this out here real quick. There's the high pressure responsible for that. I'm going to pull up North American area, see if we got any changes here in the long-term forecast. States down here, massive high pressure in charge of the West Coast heating and cooking us. That, as we put it into motion there, that looks ugly. Well, at least the high pressure moves away. A little bit of troughing going on here, so that could spell a little bit more normal conditions here for California. I'm glad that high pressure got out of here, but looks like it may want to redevelop across this area. But that's towards the end of July. Either way, for now, we got an oven. We were cooking out here. Fires. See what we got here for the Watch Duty app. That's a really cool app to use if you want to know the latest information here on fires out across the West. Covers a lot. Oregon, Washington, and one would think that the whole country's on fire out here, but it's not. These are a lot of localized fires, some big ones. But let's see what we got here for the Oroville fire, the Thompson fire. Looks like it's holding steady there as far as acreage covered at 3,789 acres, 46% containment. That is good. The fire perimeter shows that it, it didn't reach this area up here where there's a lot of nice homes. And it does look like the evacuation warning has got downgraded, or evacuation order has been downgraded. So these folks are allowed to go back home. Just an evacuation warning, but hotspot area, really not seeing any major hotspots here on the map. And well, right about here, there's a little bit of satellite-based hotspots, but nothing around this side, it looks like, which is good news. So I would say these guys got this thing pretty much under control as far as the Thompson fire goes. There's another fire up here in Northern California, way out in the wilderness. Going to be hard to get to, a lot of rugged, tough terrain. The Shelley fire, that is at 445 acres, 0% containment. Hot spots all over the place here on satellite-based imagery. Once it gets into this deeper area, heavily forested, and I'm sure a lot of dry undergrowth here, it's going to blow up and get much more active. So it's not good news. Southern California got its own fair share of fires as well. Got the Basin fire outside of the Clovis and Fresno area. That's at 14,000 acres, 46% containment. Looks like another one down here as well. That's almost 100% containment, but a couple satellite-based hotspots out here. Either way, they're getting a handle on it, even with the heat. I think those folks are, doing the best they can to prevent these big fires from getting out of control, but we're just getting started. This is early in the year for fire season. It's super early. All right, seismograph stations here look pretty quiet across the board for now. But again, we'll keep an eye here on the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest with increasing activity. We'll check out the trimmer tonight, see what it looks like. With the activity we've seen overnight and this morning here, should show some further elevated trimmer out here against this area of the Cascadia subduction zone. And that's trimmer down 35, 45 kilometers deep into the area, indicating strain out here. Because you got to have strain and shoving and pushing and shoving, so to speak, to make that plate dive down further into the subduction zone. So that tremor activity is just a low vibrational frequency being picked up when two plates slowly slide past each other down, again, 35, 45 kilometers deep into this area. But I'm sure it's building up some strain out here as well. So be prepared. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later. I'm inside all day. There's no way I'm going out in 115 degree heat. No thank you. So I'll be off here on the live stream, just kind of monitoring things. By the way, live stream is up and running. Hope everyone has a good day, and we will catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening. Make sure you guys subscribe, please like the video. It helps us out a lot with the YouTube algorithms. We'll see you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening. Stay safe, folks, and stay cool.